Hello, friends, and welcome to the Monday night introduction to U.S. government and civics. Let alone prepper, welcome. I'm only seeing you, and actually, it's showing me 0. But I know you're out there. Sue Me can't make it this evening. She's driving home. She's currently on the road. Hello, Holly Ivans. Good to see you. I was just chatting with her on Messenger, and I sure hope she makes it home safe. She's driving from Ohio back to the Toronto area, so she's on the road, and we pray for her safety, that she gets home safe, and everything goes well. We are studying out of the American Government textbook. This is for high school students, and great book. Tonight we're going to be talking about chapter 12, I believe it is. Yeah, chapter 12, political parties. Interesting discussion. Hello, Celtic Grandma. Welcome. Good to see you. What's really strange is we have had a divided country since before we were a country. If you take a look back at the Revolutionary War, we had two primary parties, basically, the Whigs and the Tories. Were basically those who wanted separation from England and those who did not. Then we went into through the Revolutionary War, and as we began the formation of our country, originally Thomas Jefferson had the Democratic Republicans. So believe it or not, at one time that was both of those terms were in one party, and that was the Thomas Jefferson Party. But we've constantly had this debate and an ongoing debate, and it's still common today. Big government, centralized federal government versus states' rights, and more of a federalist type of a government system. Do we rule with the brain and written law and codification of expectations? Do we rule with the heart? There's the thought versus love or emotion. How do we say this in a way that it doesn't degrade either one? Rationalization versus emotion. How's that? And centralized versus decentralized government, and power to the government, central government, or power to the local governments. So this has always been a contention in our country. It's existed since before we became a country, and it exists today. Oh wow! Look at my hair. I got a haircut this weekend. Can't tell, can you? It's not willing to cooperate. So if we take a look at the major parties, the Federalist Party was started in 1789. It is, if you will, the precursor of the Republican Party. And then the Democratic Republicans went from 1794 until about 1828. Then they changed their name to Democrat. And the Federalists became the National Republicans from 1824 until 1832. Then they changed their name to the Whig Party from 1832 until 1852. Then they changed back to Republican in 1852, and it's been that way up until the present time. So there's been this constant dichotomy between the two parties. Now there have been some other third parties that have emerged over time, but those third parties are more of a detractor than anything else. I actually belong to a third party, so and I'll share with you some of the things that we do. Thanks, Holly. I appreciate that. Let me see, who's this? South Florida DCL says, at this point, I wouldn't consider the U.S. a country at this point. Which hair did I cut? Actually, it was a whole bunch. I used to look at this. I used to go in at 9 o'clock on Tuesday mornings when I was on active duty and tell them to cut my hair and thin it. Now I wish I could go in once a week and have them thicken it and glue some back on. More's falling out than anything else. Hello, Butch Graves. Welcome. Good to see you. Triple G, good to see you as well. I was just on the chatting with Triple G with Peter as well, and telling him that We have a Texas statewide preparedness group. It's called Texas Preparedness Group. If you would like to join it, just look up Texas Preparedness Group. And then we have a 1 hour live every Thursday evening, which is why I can't commit to do anything on a Thursday evening, because we do a 1 hour live with the statewide group. I am in District 13, which is basically Central Texas, around the capital, around Austin. We have our district meeting the third Saturday of every month. And so our district chairperson asked me if I would take care of doing the instruction and giving the presentation for the third Saturday in June. And we're trying to move it around. It's 6 counties. So we try to always move it around to a different county and everything. So here in our county, we have a real nice park up in Georgetown, and it's San Gabriel River Park. And so the third Saturday in June, I'm going to be giving a 4-hour talk, demonstration, guided tour of water collection. We're right next to the San Gabriel River. That's appropriate, isn't it? Water collection, purification, and storage. And then I'll also be doing a discussion on waste management and how to dispose of human waste, and what are we going to do to keep ourselves safe so we don't have all these other diseases that are common with human waste. And so if you're around the area, around the Austin area, then go on up to the capital of Williamson County, Georgetown, San Gabriel Park on June the 15th, and I'll be giving a 4-hour discussion. And we'll also be doing a cookout, and we'll have everybody will be trading, not crock pot, but cast iron cooking secrets and open fire secrets. And everybody will be kind of doing their survival type eating skills out there as well, whether there's a grill available to us and all kinds of stuff. So it's going to be kind of fun. Let me see if I've missed anybody else here real quick. Hello, Gil. Welcome. Good to see you as well. Always good to see Gil. Utah Mike will vote third party this year. And okay. So, one of the things that President Washington warned us of, especially as he left the office, was to be careful that we didn't get caught up into a two-party system. Hello, Botch Jones. Good evening. Welcome. I don't. Mr. Jones, I really, I am opposed to indoctrination. I have been. I constantly say we should be teaching children how to think, not what to think. And I think our education system is sorely lacking. If you can get them into private school, although even some of the private schools have gone very leftist, if you can get them into a private school or homeschool, if you're capable of homeschooling, then I strongly recommend that. Although there are some people who have done homeschooling. Let me adjust my light here. It looks like it's not point. There we go. Although there are some people who do homeschooling. If you aren't good at homeschooling, if you don't have all the skills yourselves, make sure you have somebody that you can count on to help you with that. Because I had a secretary. I will tell you, when I was an HR manager for a hospital system, my secretary was homeschooling her child, and she didn't know how to paragraph, and there were a couple of other things. So she asked me if she could bring her daughter into work and have me teach her. So I taught her a couple of the things that were there. And then one day I did a memo, and we were concerned about. We had a whole bunch of overweight staff, and we were concerned about what it was going to do as far as their health. And so I was putting out a memo about weight classifications and how we were going to help them if they wanted to lose weight. And I put down the pound sign, the number sign for pounds. And in a couple places, no. I put down LBS for pounds. And she came in and just laughed and made a big deal out of it and said, "Oh, Lee, don't you know you can't be that smart, because the abbreviation for pounds is PDS, not LBS. I said, okay. So just be careful. That's the kind of person you have homeschooling sometimes. So, just if you're homeschooling, make sure you're capable of doing that. Hi, Chef Tech 86. Yes, welcome. Good to see you, my friend. We were on together on Gil's channel here just the other night. So glad to see you. So if we take a look at basically the parties, I'm going to go through this timeline that they give in the book of basically the differentiation between the two parties. I guess I could start off. They give a differentiation between the two parties on major political issues up here a little bit earlier. Yeah, here we go. So the issue is abortion. The Democratic Party strongly and unequivocally supports Roe v. Wade and a woman's right to choose. The Republican platform is we assert the inherent dignity and sanctity of all human life and affirm that the unborn child has a fundamental individual right to life which cannot be infringed. Energy. Democrats are committed to fast-track investment of billions of dollars for the next 10 years to establish a green energy sector that will create up to 5 million jobs. And the Republican stance is we must draw more American oil from American soil. We encourage refinery construction and modernization, and with sensitivity to environmental concerns and expedited permitting process. Taxation. Democratic platform, we will shut down the corporate loopholes and tax havens and use the money so that we can provide an immediate middle-class tax cut. That's already been done, actually, but not by the Democrats. We'll eliminate federal income taxes for millions of retirees because all seniors deserve to live out their lives with dignity and respect. But yet, it was the Democrats who decided that they needed more income and taxed Social Security. So the Social Security became taxable income. And then next paragraph, we'll ask them to give back a portion of the Bush tax cuts to invest in healthcare and other key priorities. Republicans will lower the tax burden for families by doubling the exemption for dependents. We'll continue our fight against federal death tax. The Republicans support tax credits for healthcare and medical expenses. National security. And now remember, this is 2010. So the Democrats, we must first bring the Iraq war to a responsible end. We'll defeat al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and Pakistan, where those who actually attacked us on 9/11 reside and are resurgent. We will fully fund and implement the recommendations of the bipartisan 9/11 Commission. Republicans, we must regularly exercise our ability to quickly respond to acts of bioterrorism and other WMD-related attacks. We must develop and deploy both national and theater missile defenses to protect the American homeland, our people, our armed forces abroad, and our allies. So somebody had once asked the question, if everybody else has these bomb shelters, why the United States doesn't have bomb shelters? And we did. We had bomb shelters up until Reagan. And but the problem was that people were, in order for a bomb shelter to be effective, you can't have a lock on it. It's got to be open and accessible. And so you had all this emergency food in there and all these other nice things like, Geiger counters and everything else. So, but they couldn't be locked up. So people were going in and stealing it. And that was costing us an arm and a leg to replenish that, plus having to build more and everything else. And so with Star Wars, it was thought that if we could stop the incoming missiles before they actually explode over our country, there was no need to have a bomb shelter. So the money that had been spent in supplying all of the bomb shelters in the United States was shifted over to work on Star Wars and the defense of the homeland from any kind of SSM or ICBM, surface missile SSM, and ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile attack. And so we wanted to stop the attack before it actually got to us. I see somebody saying no rudeness allowed here. So let me see what's going on here. Didn't ask for a life story. Didn't ask you to be here. So, we try to be kind, polite, and respectful, and that's one of our rules. And if you can't be, then we just let you go somewhere else. Okay, so let's take a look at the history of the two-party system. It starts off in 1796 with the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans emerging. The new nation's first political parties emerge and usher in the first American party system. In 1800, Jefferson was elected president, and voters rejected the Federalist agenda of a strong centralized government by electing Thomas Jefferson to the presidency and a majority of Democratic Republicans to Congress. In 1828, second party system emerges. The disappearance of the Federalists and a split among Democratic Republicans pits the Whigs against the modern Democratic Party. In 1832, the first presidential nomination convention. So up until that time, basically, you could have the president from one party and the vice president from another party, because it was basically who got the most votes and who got the second most votes. Then in 1832, it became where we had the president and vice president ran on a combined ticket. So in 1832, the first presidential nomination convention, the Democratic Party holds the first presidential nomination convention, nominating President Andrew Jackson for president. In 1856, the Whig Party dissolved, and the new Republican Party, which opposed slavery, nominates John C. Fremont as their first presidential candidate. Of course, the next election cycle in 1860, they would elect Abraham Lincoln. In the 1870s, party machines form, and that is the party machines enforce the voters' party loyalty by providing jobs and services in exchange for votes. So basically, they were offering jobs, security, and this is where we also started getting in a lot of the people who were what do we call them? Lobbyists, where the lobbyists were making deals to try to get things for their part of the deal. This is where we started seeing a lot of the bills get a little bit more encumbered. And that is that in order to get somebody else's support for my bill, let's say I have a bill that I want to create a canal in between two states. And in order to get that done, let's say it's between Ohio and Indiana. I know there's no river to cross or anything else, but we're using a hypothetical. So I'm going to build something in between Ohio and Indiana, and it crosses those two borders. Well, that's going to be a national project. But in order to get that national project approved, I need other votes. So a person from Arkansas or Missouri says, I don't want to spend money on you two guys in that state getting this thing. That's my taxpayer money that you're using for this thing for yourselves. So they realize that, and what they say is, well, wait a minute, don't you need money for that project down there in your area too? Don't you want to build some more storm shelters because you're in a high tornado area? So if you'll vote for us, we'll put a rider on this bill. That will give you more money for for tornado shelters down in your neck of the woods. So that's how that all started coming about, where we would have the riders on the bills so that you could get support from other people to earmark funds, because they weren't going to initially support spending money in what was flagrantly to the advantage of one or two states. Let me see here. Yes, as a matter of fact, that is one of the things that President Biden has said he wants to do before he leaves office is to double capital gains tax, and he also wants to reinstate the inheritance tax. If you remember that about 4 or 5 years ago, the inheritance tax was done away with. And so he wants that to come back. Let me see. So, when you take a look at Well, I did a study a little while ago, and this is a little bit old, because this was in the early portion of the 2000s, the 21st century. I was teaching human resources management at the local college in a nighttime class, and we did a study on taxation. And if you take a look at it, with the exception of a couple states, okay, the three states on the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, California, and then you've got a couple states on the East Coast, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, and maybe Maryland. I'm not really sure. But they had the highest overall tax rates. But everybody else has pretty much the same standard of about 40% of your income being taxable between federal and state. And it's pretty much across the board. How they do it changes. For example, here in Texas, we have a 4% state sales tax and a 4% county municipal sales tax. We don't have any income tax, but we have pretty high property taxes. Now, in states that have a state income tax, they may have relatively low property taxes, but it all pretty much washes out to the same. It's just, so everybody's pretty much at the same level, with the exception of those high tax states. It's a question of how you do the taxation. Okay, so in 1932, the New Deal coalition formed. A new coalition of voters rallied behind President Franklin D. Roosevelt to form the group that continues to be the Democratic Party's base today. 1992, we had a major third-party candidate, H. Ross Perot. I don't know if you remember him or not, but H. Ross Perot ran against George H.W. Bush. And so you had basically, it was pretty much, if Perot had not run, Bush would have been reelected for a second term, probably somewhere in the vicinity of 52 to 48. But H. Ross Perot took enough votes away from Bush to where Bush got like 45, Clinton got 48, and then Perot got the rest. So that made Clinton the majority winner. And so Bill Clinton was elected because H. Ross Perot took those votes away from George H.W. Bush. And the whole thing was George H.W. Bush ran on a platform of no new taxes, and then he succumbed and allowed for a tax increase, and that's what really ticked H. Ross Perot off. And so H. Ross Perot ran against him because of his increase in the tax increase. In 2010, we have party unity rising, though party ties have weakened in the electorate. They have never been stronger in Congress. And you see that especially on the Democrat side. The Democrats vote party line. Republicans don't. Democrats vote strict party line, whatever they're told to do. And that can be concerning. There is a shift going on right now in party, and there's a major party realignment. Believe it or not, most of the minorities, Hispanics and Blacks, were Republican up until the mid 60s. Okay. And in the mid 60s, we had the New Deal, what do they call it? The War on Poverty and a couple other things by LBJ. So he gave a lot of stuff to the disadvantaged communities in hopes to get them, and his famous quote was, "If you'll pass this bill, I'll have them voting Democrat forever." And I think that people are becoming aware of that they have been used. They were promised things that have still not been delivered to the state. And so as a result of that, you're seeing some backlash. You're seeing some repercussion. You're seeing a lot of the minorities saying, wait a minute, we've been promised all this stuff for a long time and it's not happening, and we're going to go to the other side. So you're probably going to see a shift in some of the demographic support of the parties as a result of the election, as a result of, I'm going to say what's happened over the course of the last 3, possibly 7 years. You're going to see some shifting of votes as far as demographics. So some of the parties that are coming up nowadays, you've got the Nationalist Party, and they caucus with the Republicans, but it's more of a country first type of a deal. I'm a member of the Constitutional Party, so we just want whatever's written in the Constitution to be interpreted the way it is in the Constitution, and we follow the Constitution. If the Constitution needs to be changed, then let's change it. But let's follow the written law as it is written, and move on from there. And so we have a tendency to caucus more with the Republicans than we do with the Democrats, because we feel that the Republicans have more of a sense of following the Constitution than do the Democrats. Then you also have the Green Party. You also have a couple others. You have some extreme right groups. You have some extreme left groups. It gets crazy. If we talk about the political parties and how they're organized, you have a national chair that heads over a national committee, and then the national committee has national convention. My first convention I was exposed to was the 1968 convention in Chicago, and that was a riot. I mean, a real physical riot in Chicago. You can look up the Democratic Convention in '68 in Chicago, and that's basically what we have going on with all of the colleges right now with the students and their support of Hamas terrorists. Then at the state level, you have a state central committee and state conventions. And so that's, if you take a look at it, the state conventions are basically what's happening with the caucuses and conventions for the primaries and then on to the election. And then you have congressional district committees. Then at the local level, you have city and county committees, precinct and ward committees, activists and volunteers, and then at the very bottom, the identifiers and voters. So we just had elections here in our county over the course of earlier voting ended Sunday, but then the actual vote is tomorrow. So early voting up through yesterday, and then the actual vote is tomorrow on our school board and school bonds and everything. So for education purposes. So we've got a special election happening tomorrow for school purposes. Let me see. There are also some informal groups, coalitions within each one of the parties. Our county had a big, our county fair type of no, that's not the right way to say it. They call it the Red Poppy Festival. And so we went up there, and of course you had the Democrat booth, you had the Republican booth, and able to talk to the people there and everything else. And so those are kind of informal groups that are trying to convince people how to vote and what the issues are and where they stand on those issues and everything else. And so those are some of those informal groups that they have that meet and try to sway people one way or the other. So the question is, how much money do the parties raise for their candidates? And right now, Democrats are actually getting more money than the Republicans are, and it's not from individual donors. So, you have this perception that the Republicans are represented by the big business coalitions and everything else, and the Democrats are supported by the average Joe who's giving $1. That's not necessarily true. The Democrats have the Bill Gates, the what's his name, owns the Dallas Mavericks, Mark Cuban's, those kinds of guys who want the laws to remain in effect that allow them to have an advantage over everybody else. So those guys are going to have, because, if you give a lot of money to a party to elect a candidate, then they're kind of beholding to you because they need that money again to be reelected. So you've got a lot of these mega millionaires who are donating to one party or the other and having an influence because it's like lobbying. It's the exact same thing. But typically, since the turn of the century, the Democrats have outraised the Republicans. If we take a look at how much party unity scores have changed, We've got 80% support of the party platform by the Democrats as of 2009, and 78% support of the party platform by Republicans. So let me see, group affiliations, party and political socialization. Let's see what else looks interesting here for you. Okay, third parties, the role of third parties and their influence that they have had over the course of history. In 1840, there was a group that basically did away with the Federalist Party, and it was the Liberty Free Soil Party, and their number one platform was the abolition of slavery. So when they did away with the Federalists, then that became the Republican Party. Prohibition was a major party in 1880, and they wanted the prohibition of alcohol sales and consumption. Very high support by the majority of women, who at this time did not have the right to vote. However, had a very strong influence in the household. In 1912, the Progressive Bull Moose Party was formed, and it caused factionalism inside the Republican Party, much like what H. Ross Perot did to George W. Bush, only this time the factionalist got elected because of the Bull Moose Party, and that was Teddy Roosevelt. In 1968, the American Independent Party was formed, and it talks about states' rights and the opposition to desegregation. In 1968 was when we had the major civil rights movement going on, and that's what was one of the major focuses of that 1968 Democratic Convention. And so we saw a lot of things happening as a result of that. That caused a shift in the Democratic Party a little bit more to the left than it had been previously. In 1971, the Libertarian Party was formed, and its opposition to governmental intervention, primarily in the economy and in social policy. I have a leaning towards that. Then in 1996, the Reform Party talked about economic issues, tax reform, national debt, and federal deficit, wanting to reduce all of those. And so that's a small faction inside of the Republican Party. Later on, they kind of converted a little bit, if you will, to the Tea Party. And then in 2000, you had the Green Party, and this is on the left side, that was formed, and that's basically environmentalism and social justice. So the problem with the third party, and we can talk about RFK, Robert F. Kennedy, the problem he's having is getting on the ballots. Major announcement this morning that he has been approved to be on the ballot in California. Now remember, California has one of the largest number of voting blocks, if you will, to the Electoral College. So if he could win California, that would be a major upset as far as the overall voting in the country. But so RFK is finally on a ballot. He's made it to the California ballot. We'll see if he can make it to other ballots as we go along. There is a move basically to do away with the two parties and reform them and see what we can do, because a lot of people feel very disenfranchised. You've got the left centers who feel what we call blue dog Democrats, who feel that they've been disenfranchised by the ultra left liberals. The squad of six and all those guys feel that the party's moved way far left. As a matter of fact, both President Trump, who was a Democrat originally, as well as Elon Musk and a couple of others, have said our positions haven't changed. The party left us. We didn't leave the party. We are kind of a centrist, and because the party has gone so far left, we now look like right or right centrist type of people. Likewise, you've got the same thing happening on the right, where you've got some of these people that are becoming the Tea Partiers and things like that who are becoming ultra right. And so now we've got this division where we almost have four parties. We have far left, left center, right center, and far right. I'm going to say the vast majority of Americans, probably 2/3. If we take a standard bell-shaped curve, I'm going to say that that plus or minus one standard deviation from the mean, which is going to be 68% of the population, probably falls inside that arithmetic mean, that one standard deviation of the bell curve, and that's going to be 68% of the population is pretty much centrist and just a little bit left or a little bit right of center. Now it's the other 32%, that are off to the rights. And if we go plus or minus two standard deviations, then you've got 14% on each side. And then at the very end, you've got the plus or minus 2% at the far extreme ends. So I think that's pretty much how the country is. The vast majority of us are just barely over that center line from the other side. We're more centrist than we are right or left. But then we've got these extremists who seem to capture all of the news in the news media. So let's see where we are as far as chat. Absolutely. That's another one they're talking about, Chef Tech. Thank you. They're talking about unrealized gains, which means that you take a look at what the value of your stocks were at the beginning of the year, what the value of your stock is at the end of the year, and then you do a theoretical. If you sold it, you would make this much money. Therefore, it is now taxable. Is it going to work the other way? So if your stock goes down, are they going to refund to you at the end of the year? Yeah, that's a good question. I hate to see that go. I would hate to see that pass. Oh, okay. So Theoxorus and I are in agreement. I thank you. So we said the same thing basically. I wouldn't call it a foreign bank as much as an over-controlling entity that we have created. Read The Creature from Jekyll Island. And it will explain to you how we've created a monster. And we need to pull in the Fed. We need to get rid of the Fed. We need to coin our own money. And it may be too late to do it. I don't know. Every time that we get into a financial harangue, as deep as we are right now, the only thing that has pulled us out is a world conflict. Okay. And, and I think a lot of other countries are kind of in agreement with that they need, to build up the military industrial complex and reduce population and reduce the supply of money and everything else in order to resolve some of the issues that we have going on. And I think that's probably one of the greatest movements towards bellum, B-E-L-L-U-M. That's a Latin word because we get in trouble if we use the backwards R-A-W, spell it the other way around. If we use that word, then we get in trouble on YouTube. So I'm trying to use, so you will hear me talk quite frequently about bellum, B-E-L-L-U-M, the Latin word for that conflict. I don't think Perot ever had a chance of being elected, to be honest with you. I think he knew he was he did it just to spite Bush. I am convinced of that. That's absolutely correct. He did, Holly. And the other thing that's happening is there are a lot of countries that are now saying they will not trade in the U.S. dollar. So if the U.S. dollar is losing its status as the world reserve currency, then we're going to see a major catastrophic financial decline. Probably the replacement for the U.S. dollar as far as the world financial reserve is going to be the yuan from China. But what's his name? Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio talks about this in his book, Megatrends. So if you read Megatrends, he talks about the 4 major world reserve currencies, and the U.S. is on its way down, and the Japanese yuan is on the way up. And that's part of the reason why they have BRICS. I don't know if you're familiar with BRICS or not. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa formed their own monetary coalition. And that is strictly to get rid of the US dollar as the world reserve currency. We have used the US dollar, and once it became the world reserve currency, we've used it as a weapon, and people don't like that. So because we've weaponized the dollar, they are fighting back. And same thing. Russia, we confiscate their assets, we freeze their accounts and everything else, and then we are surprised if they retaliate and did the exact same thing to us that we've done to them. All's fair. If we're going to do it to them, they certainly have the right to do it to us. I don't remember that. I'll have to take a look at that. Will 68 repeat in 2024? I tell people to be prepared for civil unrest because I don't care who wins the election. We've seen too much monkeying around with the votes. There was the accused monkeying around of the votes in 2016. There was the definite monkeying around of the votes in 2020. And so I don't think anybody trusts the electoral system in the United States anymore. And the funny thing is we're a laughingstock internationally. If you want to find out the truth about our electoral system, take a look at what some of the foreign countries are saying about us. That we're enforcing democracy on everybody else, but we can't even practice it in our own country. And I think it all started basically back in 2000. And so I still have an extra grind over that. And the only way that it got down close enough to where we would start looking at hanging Chad on ballots, and this was the Kerry George Bush election in 2000. The only reason we got down to that was because Kerry and his people found a rule in the Florida law that said that all ballots, all absentee ballots, had to be postmarked before the voting date. Well, all U.S. military, who are the ones who do the primary absentee ballots, and there's a big difference between absentee and mail-in. I'll get to that here in just a minute. But the U.S. military are the ones who primarily use absentee ballots, okay? And the military is, in the enlisted ranks, primarily Republican. In the officer ranks, I'm going to say up until you make major, maybe lieutenant colonel, so we're talking 04, 05 level, they're primarily Republican. But then once you get up in that part where you have to politic a lot, they become more Democrat. So historically, if you take the military vote away, then it is to the advantage of the Democrat Party to take the military vote away. So they found this rule that said that all absentee ballots have to have a date time stamp, cancellation stamp, that they were mailed prior to the cutoff for the election. And since U.S. Army Post Office, APOs, and Fleet Post Office for the Marine Corps and Navy do not cancel with a date. A lot of times they don't even cancel the stamp at all. So because they weren't canceled with a date on it, all of those ballots were thrown out. Once all those ballots were thrown out, then it got close enough to where they could do the hanging Chad. And so I still have a problem with that. Now, the difference between an absentee ballot and a mail-in ballot. A mail-in ballot, you just fill it out, put it in an envelope, and mail it off, right? Sign your name on the outside. On an absentee ballot, you basically have to request it in advance, and then it's mailed to you. And it comes in, I think it's like 3 different envelopes. But one of the ones, when I go in to vote, I take my absentee ballot with me, and I fill it out, and then I fold it and put it inside an envelope, okay? That envelope is then attested to by a commissioned officer, because all commissioned officers have the same power as a notary public. So that commissioned officer is saying that he checked the ID card of the person who is voting, and it's the same person as to whom the ballot was mailed. Okay, so there's 100% correlation between eligibility and person actually doing the voting. And so you got your ballot with no name on it or anything else inside an envelope. That envelope has no name or anything else inside another envelope that is attested to by a notary, a commissioned officer, saying that the two are the same. And then that is put inside a third envelope, which is then mailed to the voting commission. So the difference between a mail-in and an absentee has to prove identity and eligibility to vote. Okay, mail-in didn't, and that's the problem we ran into in 2020. Oh, you're a young thing. Oh. Well, I hope it wasn't for too long, and we'll apologize to him. So, Chef Tech, evidently, my moderators are telling me that they accidentally timed you out. I apologize for that. I think they're very sorry for it as well. And then we'll get you back on here as soon as we can. So my apologies for that. That was an accident, I am quite certain. Yeah, I like some of the things he says. I like him as a person. I'm kind of in that middle right category. But although as a constitutionalist, some people would say I'm extremely far right. Let me see here. Treaty of 1871 Treaty of Washington, trying to find any suggestion of USA Inc. and couldn't find it. Yeah, that's I keep hearing that. There are all kinds of things. I got corrected on Gill's channel the other night. I've been listening to a lot of people about this Missouri Bill 727 that's going to declare homes as institutions of higher learning and therefore a gun-free zone. And I pointed that out on Gill's channel. No, it was Prepping with Sarge's channel. And Sassy Gal Prepping said, no, you're wrong. I've done a lot of research into that because I'm a homeschooler and I wanted to make sure that I was up on top of it. And so she corrected me. So you need to go watch Sassy Gal Prepping's video on Missouri Bill 727. I think there's a lot of disinformation being put out about that. I fell for it. Speaking of which, we do have a couple good channels that I can strongly recommend. So I really like Prepping with Sarge. I moderate for him on Friday nights. He comes on at 6:45 Central Time, so that's 7:45 Eastern. A really good channel. Sassy Gal Prepping is a really good channel. I really like Prepper Dog, and he puts one out nightly. He's out of Georgia, the Atlanta area. Really like him. He always closes with a verse. So strongly recommend those. My good friend Pete, who is the roaming prepper, he has a really good channel as well. Yeah, if somebody could look up that Sassy Gal Prepping homeschool video that she did and put the link in here, I would greatly appreciate that. Stray Kitten's asking for it. Yeah, Prepping with Sarge is Friday night at 7:45 Eastern, 6:45 Central. And but that's a good channel as well. And then, of course, the roaming prepper. He doesn't have a schedule. He just does a lot of off the cuff lives. Every day, our friend Steve Smith puts out a video. I tell you what, city prepping and Canadian Prepper, I really like Canadian Prepper. He puts out a lot of good stuff. I mean, a lot of people said he's a fear monger, but he's just telling you what it is and how it is, and I really like that. Another good one is New York Prepper. Greg does a good job of researching stuff, and I like his channel. I end up spending way too much time watching other people's channels and not enough time doing my own. I did put one out earlier tonight on Faraday bag and show you what I have in my Faraday bag. I'm going to get a second Faraday bag. So in this one, I have a GMRS radio, a UV5G, Yaesu YA6 VHF UHF transceiver for ham. I have a Kato 500, I believe it is, HF, or it's an all band AM, FM with NOAA weather warning, crank, solar, battery. What else? There's so many ways it's powered, it's pitiful. And then I also have a monocular night vision device that I keep in this Faraday bag. As soon as I get enough money to where I can afford another one, I want to get another one where I can put in a CB radio, an FRS radio, my scanner, and maybe my good optics, my good night vision optics for my my Bang Bang. So thank you, Little Lone Prepper. I appreciate that. I greatly appreciate that. So here's that video that Sassy-Gal Prepping did on homeschooling and whether or not it's going to be declared a gun-free zone. Okay. Well, we're kind of done a little bit early this evening. Any questions or comments before we bring this to a close and let people go about their business? Don't forget, tomorrow night we're on week 12 of. Look at all these books I've got going on here. So here's one that I'm reading right now. And this is in preparation for that class I'll be doing in June. Here's another one I'm reading right now. So this one does a different thing every day. And then this is the book we're reading for the fiction book club for this year, or for this month. So I'm reading it. Then, of course, I'm rereading this one, which we're going to start doing as soon as we finish this one. So we have 1 week left on this one this week, tomorrow, 1 week after that, then 2 weeks from tomorrow night, we start this book, the Rawles book. So those are all the books I've got going on over here. And that should take care of it. Okay. Oh, no. Good question, Stray Kitten. So shelter in place means that wherever you are, do not go out onto the streets. Don't go out into common areas. Like if you're in a store, stay inside the store. Do not leave the store. If you're in your home, stay where you are in your home. Don't leave anywhere. Do not go out into the streets, basically, is what a shelter in place order is. Yeah, the one that I show in this video today is the Mylar black nylon fabric type of a deal. Let me see. Mary Greeley saying that there's magnitude 3+ quakes and possible volcanic tremors in Hawaii. Navajo traditional teachings. Father Yanuzi radio programs. All these announcements I'm getting. Rosary Family Holy Hour and Canadian Prepper, 7 prepper items to hoard. Okay. I believe it's Nighthawk. Let me get my bag. Just 1 minute. Now you have to remember, I'm a retired soldier, so I can't afford all the fancy, expensive stuff. So I kind of go inexpensive. But if we get into this Faraday bag here. Night vision. The name of the company is Night Vision. Yeah. Put that back in there after the show. Let me see. Did I see the police shooting in Charlotte, North Carolina? 3 marshals, task force members killed, 5 officers shot. I saw a little bit of it. Don't know enough to where I can make any comments on it. Oh, Gil, thank you. That's a great suggestion. I did not know that they used tear gas at UT Austin today. I did notice, I saw something on the news that the Columbia students, who, after having been expelled and being told that they were not going to be graduating or demanding amnesty, that they be forgiven for their childish behavior and want to be able to graduate and be able to show something for the enormous student loan debt that they have that they won't be able to pay back. Did I miss something from Diana too? Let me go up here and check. Oh yeah, okay. That was the federal marshals and the others. So okay, well, so next week we will be discussing in the book chapter 13, which is of course, it's going to be between 2 folded pages. Elections and voting. All right. So we're taking a look at the election process and voting next week. So let me get my Bible here, and we'll read Numbers chapter 6, verses. You know what's really interesting in my Bible study this morning? A lot of people are saying that you have to go to Isaiah, and Isaiah will tell you that Russia and Iran are going to attack Israel, and that's when everything's going to come to off. That's not what it says. That's an interpretation. What it says is Put, Cush. It gives like 7 or 8 different names, and it says Magog is the prince of Meshech and another place. So Magog is a person, and Gog is a country. But anyhow, I was reading in our studies today. It was First Chronicles, and if you take a look at First Chronicles, all those names are people in the lineage down from Noah. And so really interesting how that all ties together. So those are actually people and then cities of the ancient world at the time of David. So I thought that was fantastic. I was really having a blast putting that all together today. Okay, so the book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and grant you peace. So remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other. And Chef Tech 86, our sincere apologies. One of our moderators says that he may have accidentally timed you out, and our sincere apologies for that. It was totally accidental, not intentional. Welcome. I want to welcome you, and I want to invite you back. You didn't do anything wrong. It was purely an accident. So I apologize for that. We would value having you here, and I think that everybody would be very happy to have you join us in the conversation. So remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other, because togetherness is the key. Y'all take care. Have a great evening. See you tomorrow night. Bye-bye.